Good morning. This is Angelica Francis with WYDK Talk Radio, and I'm coming to you today to share something with you, our audiences. We've been having ongoing discussions about the abuse of the elderly and disabled in specialized housing, and we're doing a full 6-week series about a lot of the things that I've experienced, and also allowing people who normally would not have a voice have a chance to speak up and speak out about their experiences and what's going on. It is directed more specifically around a specific organization because it's the one that involves me in my life and affects our shows and affects everything that I do, both personally and business-wise, especially since we've had a lot of illegal entries and equipment damaged and stolen. So, in explaining to our viewers and listeners and what's been going on, we're also expounding more. Again, our programs are about real people, real problems, real solutions. And this is a very real problem. It's actually an epidemic in the United States and globally. We need solutions. No matter how bad a situation is, you still always need to have some form of remedy. And we need to present plausible, realistic solutions. So this is the first petition I have ever in my life have written. I've signed many a petition through the years, but I've never written one. And I apologize ahead of time if I have to clear my throat several times so that I can actually speak, because I am losing my voice. So this site is called Change Ep1. It's one of the oldest and one of the most well-known petition sites for online petitions. And there are 2 other sites that we're going to be posting our petitions on as well. In this particular situation, we're writing 3 completely different petitions because each petition needs to address a very specific set of needs. And this is the first one. And as you can clearly see, it says, "And the abuse of elderly and disabled in specialized housing." And you see my name and my little picture right there. And we've just begun to circulate it, so we have 4 supporters so far. Our goal is to reach 10,000 signatures. We need these people in the city, state, and federal government agencies to know that this is something that a lot of people are deeply concerned about. This is something that people care and want to make a difference in. So we need as many signatures on these petitions as possible. For one, we begin explaining that 1 in 5 American adults has a disability, and everyone who lives long enough will become elderly. And it's very common for people who are elderly to also be disabled. And if this doesn't affect you, then it will impact someone that you know and love. Want to kind of change the perspective and the way people look at disabilities, because more people have them than you realize. We hereby demand that city, state, and federal agencies work with the tenants of disabled and elderly housing to ensure that their concerns and complaints regarding their places of residence are properly addressed. The plethora of unfit living condition breaches many serious laws that must be upheld. In many cases, these places are allowed to self-govern, which means any reports of issues with the conditions, issues with the staff and their attitudes and how they're behaving with the people who live there are reported directly to the company themselves before any information is given out to the governing city, state, and federal agencies. The problem with this is very real because it's something that we've continually had to deal with. I recently, in November, went to court to file a restraining order because a lot of things, illegal accesses have been stolen, not just from my apartment, but almost every tenant in the building has complained for years about the thefts. And the person who is stealing from us has keys to our apartments. We live in a security building, so you have to be able to have a pass key to even get into the building. No one else can enter. Then you have to get past our steel doors. They cannot be pried. They're special doors. They're very heavy doors, and you're not going to pry those doors open. And in my case, I had an outdoor lock also on my bedroom. So they had to get into the building, they had to get into my apartment, and then get into my bedroom. Initially, I had given management a set of keys to my bedroom because it was a requirement for fire reasons and things like that. And I had to change it when thefts kept occurring in my room and no one else had a key to my room except him and I. And I realized who it was. So I changed the lock. Then there have been break-ins where my door, because it's not a steel door to my bedroom, has been pried open, and we have pictures and videos of that. And actually a hole put all the way through the door where someone could physically reach their hand in to the back of the doorknob and open up the door. And I had been reporting the situation, but they said that when we got to court, there had been no reports. There had been no reports by the other tenants. There had been no reports by myself, which was a lie. There was a period of time where every week, almost every tenant in the building kept reporting. Anything small that can easily be picked up and walked away with: jewelry, money, cell phones, video games, handheld video game systems, small items, tools, small electronics, things like that, kept walking away. Groceries, I can't count how many times I just went shopping and half of my groceries are gone before the afternoon because I had to leave for doctor's appointments or do other things, and I'd come back and half my things that I just purchased, nobody ate anything. And many of the times it's been since I'm here alone, so there's nobody else here. And they lied. They lied, said there were never any complaints made, and there never been any reports. So these types of places cannot self-govern themselves, because any maintenance or any type of issues that you complain about, if they're not directly addressed to a city, state, and federal agencies, and I think all three should simultaneously be notified. That way there's a major check and balance system in place. They can have online forms set up for each facility, and whenever the tenants need to make a complaint, whether it's maintenance, whether it's the behavior or the treatment of the people working there, it sends a copy of it to the location, city, state, and federal agencies. Mailboxes can be routed directly to a specific folder for each location. So if too many reports and complaints are coming from one specific location, then it needs follow-up. Otherwise, it would just need monitoring. The more serious concerns would go into a folder specific to that location, and red flags would go up when a certain amount of, especially if it's repeated, the same type of issue over and over again, where the agencies can step in and make sure that something is being done about it. And so it wouldn't take a huge amount of resources or manpower to accommodate this. A lot of it can be done easily electronically. And it would just be a matter of making sure the tenants have access to a means, because you have to have access to a computer, to send these complaints. It's a doable remedy. It's a very doable remedy. The bottom line is that city, state, and federal agencies need to meet with the people and talk with the people. One of the situations that we deal with here is the bullying and the threatening, and we'll evict you, or it'll be worse for you after if you say anything. And the people are so terrified to say anything and speak up for themselves. They don't want to be homeless. They don't want to be brutalized and bullied. And a lot of times in these cases, people who are bullies and very mean to the people are in these jobs. I guess it makes them feel empowered to have control over someone else's life, but it's wrong, and it's abuse, and something needs to be done about it. Now, the specific location that I'm personally dealing with is Skyforce Acres apartment complex, and it's a facility for the disabled and elderly, primarily disabled, and it is run by a company called Accessible Space Incorporated. And they are a prime example of maltreatment, neglect, and blatant disregard for human life. Several people have passed away here, and the way things are handled, it's pretty bad. We've had issues with mold and radon gas ongoing for a long period of time, far longer than it ever should have been allowed. This building, prior to being built, had already a clause that every 2 years they were supposed to check for radon because of the location where it was built. And this year is the first time that they're checking. And that's because we've made complaints and tenants tested their own units themselves and found very high levels. Well, I've lived here 9 years, and I came a year after the building had been built and opened. So this place has been in existence and functioning with tenants for 10 years. And they were supposed to be checking every 2 years. There have been numerous huge water leaks on the property. The building is heated by hot water, and the hot water pipes go overhead in certain apartments and hallways and areas in the building. And there's been many leaks where the waters run down the walls all the way down to the first floor from the second floor. In my case, my apartment is on the first floor, so it would just run all over the apartment. I've had a water leak under my sink for at least 4 years that has never been, a plumber's never come out to fix or do anything about. What the maintenance man, excuse me, my voice is going out again, Steve Martin did was take a piece of Teflon tape on the hot water. I don't know what you call it, but it comes from the wall and goes to the sink where the hot water comes out of. And it's a very bumpy, springy or coilish type of a tubing. And all he did was wrap some Teflon tape on there. Well, Teflon didn't get into the nooks and crannies, and it didn't stop the leak. Instead of the water just spraying out like it initially was doing, it just ran down the tubing to the wall, and that's where it leaked. So, or that's where the water pooled. It caused a lot of mold in the wall and all the way down the wall. And I share walls, my apartment, with the recreational room. So after a point, the mold smell and issues with the mold started permeating that area. And a lot of the tenants are on oxygen. They have breathing problems. Excuse me. And, sorry, I have breathing problems. And this hoarseness is part of being exposed to the toxic mold and stuff in my apartment. and I lose my voice constantly. That's why I haven't been doing the radio programs. These things have been being reported constantly and falling on deaf ears. Also, we have an issue here where city government haven't been doing their jobs. And it's a major conflict of interest in this town because it's a small town. And have you ever watched the movies where the mayor and the deputy and the Supreme Court justice and all these major jobs are held by the same person or several people in the same family? Or everybody grew up together because it's such a small town. Well, Tahoe is a very, very small town. The majority of the people who have homes here don't live here, and their houses are only used for vacations and holidays. But of the people who actually occupy the space, it's very, very small. And a lot of people locally really worked hard to be able to put housing. This is the only facility here for people with disabilities. And they, from what I've heard, went through so much to get a facility built for this location. And I completely 1000% understand and empathize with that. But the people they put in charge of the facility are very bad people and do not care about the health and well-being of the people who live there. And because these people also hold positions in many different city government and local government position, they're all working together and they're all part of this, then it automatically would have stopped them from being able to not act and react appropriately in this situation had all of the complaints and all of the incidents that have taken place here been reported on a federal, state, and city level. There have been several deaths here, especially within the last 3 years, that if it's not the cause of, it has certainly contributed to the ailments and the deaths that have taken place here at this location. And things like this cannot be allowed to continue. They need to be addressed and effectively addressed, because again, very vulnerable people suffer the consequences of someone else's inadequacies or not doing their job, oversight. There's a common term, falling through the cracks, and it's unacceptable. That they're giving a very large amount of money to provide suitable living conditions for senior citizens and the disabled. Yet, in many, many cases, and not just with this company and not just at this location, but again, this is a national and global epidemic where they're basically slumlords. And the very least that they can provide for the tenants is provided. People are living in unfit living conditions. And again, like in our case, mold, radon, bullies, thefts, illegal entries, and so on and so on and so on. In our particular case, I personally suspect that a lot of the information until recently never made it to the appropriate channels because it was blocked and they were lied to about what was really going on here. And now that we're making their photos and pictures and videos and documents public, there's no more lying, there's no more covering it up. I found out is that people with disabilities are treated even worse than people of different ethnic groups. They're treated like throwaways, cast-outs, useless, worthless people. They're talked to and treated that way. And that's something I'd never seen before or experienced before I was in this position. not my voice, but to give them the opportunity to speak for themselves about what's going on. And the very agencies that are supposed to help them who are abusing them. So one of the things that we're demanding in the petition is that they meet with the people in the disabled and elderly housing. Talk to them about what's going on. In these meetings, the management and cannot be present because, again, people need a vehicle in which they can express themselves and speak what is happening to them without feeling threatened or bullied, or this person knows I said this or that and there's going to be retaliation. Everybody has a right to speak. Sorry. But we need to be able to empower people to be able to speak up about what's happening to them, especially when abuse is involved. Fines and sanctions need to be imposed immediately when conditions aren't met. It is so hard going through attorneys and trying to get people to represent you and represent more than one person and trying to get any kind of help. They need to make it easier for them to get restitution for being abused, for having to live in unfit conditions for a prolonged period of time. They shouldn't have to go to court for certain types of things. It should be an automatic. If this isn't done and isn't done in a timely manner, instead of a person having to go through a long, drawn-out court proceeding, there should be something in effect or established that specific things have specific fines without them having to go through all of the trouble and wear and tear mentally, spiritually, and physically to try to find appropriate representation. But the reality of the situation is, if these are some of my final acts and deeds and things that I'm doing on this earth, then I want to make a difference. I want to make sure what caused my death never happens to anyone else. I'm going to do everything within my powers and ability to make sure that the last thing I did on this earth was to help others like myself never to have to go through what I went through ever again. So, again, this is one of 3 petitions that we're putting out. One of the other petitions is going to directly address city and state agencies that should have acted, who have had knowledge the entire time about all of the conditions and what's been going here, because I made sure, and I've already placed the documents and the correspondences between me and these agencies in federal agencies' hands, but to make sure that they're held accountable for their part in all of this, because this could not have continued if any of them would have got off their butts and done their jobs, and they didn't. They looked the other way. They allowed this to continue, so they need to be held accountable, because anytime it is your job to uphold the law and you don't, then you're equally guilty with breaking the law and the consequences that came from those laws being broken. In this case, the death of several people and the various critical illness of many people. Then they need to be held accountable. And we're going for criminal charges to be brought against all of them. And again, all the information is already in many federal agencies' hands, all the way back to Washington. So all the sabotage with my computer equipment and that they've been doing and coming on my place and trying to erase my computers and destroy my data, it's fruitless, because the information isn't stored here. At the bottom of the page, it has the names of the different offices that this petition will be sent to. So we need as many signatures as we can get, because this is a very, very serious, very, very bad situation that has to be dealt with. And there's going to be more than one petition, because we want charges brought against these people. It's not enough. No more slaps on the wrist and slaps on the hand. People have died. Too many people have died. And we don't even know the magnitude or the scope of how many people have died, all in all. We just know about the ones that are here and in our immediate location. And then we've heard about a second location where it is said, because it hasn't been verified, that 8 more people have died, and 2 under suspicious circumstances. They were probably people like me who tried to do something about it, because you see how they've been threatening me, and if they could have brought serious harm to me, they would have. So this needs to be addressed, and no more dealing with this on a mild level. We need to full out, all out, do whatever needs to be done to put an end to this foolishness, because this should have never been allowed to go on as long as it has. So I'm counting on all my listeners, viewers, friends of friends, family, which my family is massive, and also anyone who cares about what's happening here, to sign these petitions and get the word out that no, we the people are not going to stand for such a huge injustice and look the other way. We still have power as individuals, and it doesn't matter who's in office. The people have the power, and the people need to stand up for what is right. And I'm believing in you guys, so show me that I'm not wrong. And I want to hear your voices. I want to see your faces. I want to see your signatures. My whole life's work has always been to help other people. And we may be coming to the end of that life. Show me that all my work and all my efforts, all these years, has not been in vain. This is Angelica Francis with WYDK Talk Radio, signing out.